The year was 2347, and humanity had finally made it to the stars. But out here, among the 1,000 alien species that ruled the galaxy, humans were nobody special. They were the new kids, the small ones, the ones that other species looked at and laughed. Knew this feeling very well. He sat in his tiny office on Sol Station, a human trading post floating at the edge of known space. The room was small and messy. Old food containers sat on his desk. The lights flickered because the power systems were cheap. Through the dirty window, he could see cargo ships coming and going, carrying goods that humans could barely afford. Was 32 years old. He had dark hair that needed cutting and tired eyes that had seen too many bad deals. He ran a salvage business with his partner, buying broken ships and selling the parts. It was not glamorous work. Most months, they barely made enough money to pay rent. But today, something caught his eye. He was scrolling through the Fringe network, a database of auctions and sales that most serious traders ignored. It was full of junk, usually broken equipment, stolen goods with fake papers, things that nobody wanted. Then he saw it. Class cruiser, the listing said, impounded, previous owners unknown. Location, Impound Station 77 Kappa, starting bid 400 galactic credits. Stared at the screen. He read the words again, then he read them a third time. 400 credits for a cruiser was insane. These ships were legendary. They had been master builders, creating vessels that other species could only dream about. A working cruiser was worth millions. Even a broken one should cost at least 50,000 credits for scrap. Something was very wrong with this deal. He pulled up more information. The auction had been running for 6 months. Nobody had bid on it. There were notes attached from previous interested buyers, but they had all withdrawn their bids at the last moment. No explanations, just gone. The door to his office slid open and walked in. She was 29, with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. She had saved from bad deals more times than he could count. "What are you looking at?" she asked, dropping into the chair across from him. "A trap, probably," said. He turned the screen so she could see. Read the listing. Her eyebrows went up. Then her eyes went narrow with suspicion. "No," she said. "I haven't asked anything yet. You're thinking about bidding. I can see it on your face. The answer is no." Leaned back in his chair. "If this ship is even partly functional, we could retire. We could buy our own station. We could finally stop eating protein paste for dinner. And if it's not functional, if it's some kind of hegemony trap, if there's a reason nobody else has touched this thing in 6 months," crossed her arms. "Ships like this don't go for scrap prices unless something is deeply wrong." She was right, knew she was right. The galaxy was full of traps for foolish humans who thought they could get rich quick. The Dominion hegemony, the military coalition that ruled most of known space, had no love for humanity. They saw humans as pests, insects that had somehow learned to build spaceships. "But still, 400 credits," said quietly. "We have that much, barely. That's our emergency fund. That's the money we use when everything goes wrong." "Everything is already wrong," gestured at their tiny office, the flickering lights, the stained walls. "We've been doing this for 8 years, buying broken parts from broken ships and selling them to people who are just as broke as we are. When does it end?" Was silent for a long moment. She looked at the listing again. "They were wiped out 60 years ago," she said finally. "The hegemony killed them all during the purge of unaligned species. Every ship they ever built was destroyed or captured. Except this one, apparently. Which means either the listing is fake, or there's a very good reason the hegemony left this ship alone." Met his eyes. "Think about that. The hegemony, who destroyed an entire civilization to get their hands on technology, somehow missed this one ship. Or maybe they didn't miss it. Maybe they know exactly where it is. Maybe they're waiting to see which fool comes to claim it." Thought about this. It made sense. It was logical. It was exactly the kind of careful thinking that had kept them alive in a galaxy that didn't care about humans. But logic hadn't gotten them anywhere. Careful thinking had left them broke and tired and eating protein paste in a rusted station at the edge of nowhere. "I'm going to bid," he said. "Thud! I'm going to bid, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to fly out there and see what we bought." He held up a hand before she could argue. "If I don't come back, you'll know I was wrong. You can say you told me so at my funeral." stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "You're an idiot," she said. "I know. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably. And when you don't come back, I'm going to have to find a new business partner, which is going to be very annoying." Smiled. "Is that your way of saying you care?" Stood up and walked to the door. She paused there, looking back at him. "Just don't die," she said. "We still haven't finished paying off the water recycler." Then she was gone, and was alone with his decision. He placed the bid, 400 credits. Everything they had saved for emergencies. He watched the number appear on the screen, watched the countdown timer that showed how long until the auction closed. Nobody else bid. 12 hours later, the timer reached 0, and a message appeared on his screen. "Congratulations. You have won lot 7749 Kappa. Please proceed to impound station 77 Kappa to claim your purchase within 30 standard days." Read the message. Then he read it again. He owned a cruiser. The journey to impound station 77 Kappa took 3 days in his small transport ship. It was a boring trip through empty space, giving him plenty of time to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The station itself was an ugly thing, a collection of metal boxes bolted together and hanging in the darkness between stars. It was run by the and species that handled most of the impound work for this sector. They were known for being fair, which in the galaxy meant they were only slightly corrupt instead of completely corrupt. Docked his transport and walked through the cold hallways to the customs office. The walls were gray. The air smelled like chemicals. Everything about this place said that nobody wanted to be here. The customs officer was standing 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and eyes like polished black stones. It looked its paperwork. It made a clicking sound that might have been surprise. "Human," it said, "you are here for the vessel." "That's right." More clicking. The A's mandibles moved in ways that couldn't read. "You do not know what you have purchased," the officer said finally. "Many have tried to claim this vessel, 17 previous winners. All of them entered the ship to inspect it. None of them returned from its lower decks." Felt a chill run down his spine. "None of them?" "None. The ship takes them. We do not know how. We do not know why. We only know that they go in and they do not come out." They pushed the paperwork back across the counter. "You may still withdraw your claim. We will return your payment. No one would think less of you." For a moment, considered it. 17 people had died on that ship. 17 people who had probably been smarter than him, better prepared than him, more experienced than him. But he had come this far. "Where do I sign?" he asked. Thua stared at him for a long moment. Then it made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Humans," it clicked. "You are all the same. You see danger and you walk toward it. Is that a bad thing?" "I do not know," the officer said, pushing the forms toward him. "Perhaps you will survive long enough to tell me." Sign the documents. They gave him a docking bay number and a warning. The station took no responsibility for anything that happened once he boarded. He walked through the maze of hallways until he found Bay 77. The door was large and heavy, designed for cargo, not people. He pressed his hand against the scanner, and the door ground open with a sound like thunder. And there it was! The cruiser hung in the docking bay like a sleeping giant. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, nearly 800 meters long, with a hull of dark metal that seemed to drink in the light. Its design was curved and organic, nothing like the boxy human ships or the angular hegemony vessels. It looked grown rather than built. On the side of the hull, barely visible beneath centuries of dust, were words in a script that couldn't read. But his translator implant worked on them, turning them into something he could understand. The silence between stars. That was the ship's name. Stood there for a long time, staring at the vessel that had cost him everything. Then he took a deep breath and walked toward the boarding ramp. The darkness inside the ship seemed to reach out for him like a hungry hand. He went in anyway. The darkness inside the ship was complete and total. Could not see his hand in front of his face. The only sound was his own breathing, which seemed too loud in the silence. He took out his flashlight and turned it on. The beam cut through the black like a knife, showing him walls of dark metal covered in strange patterns. The patterns looked almost like veins running along the surface in complex networks that made no sense to him. The air was cold and stale. It smelled old, like a room that had been sealed for 100 years. Dust hung in the light beam, dancing slowly in the still atmosphere. "Hello," called out. His voice echoed down the corridor and faded into nothing. No response, just silence. He began to walk, keeping the flashlight pointed ahead. The corridor stretched before him, curving gently to the left. Every few meters there were doors on either side, all of them closed. He tried one, but it would not open. The control panel beside it was dark and dead. This ship was huge. The officer had said 17 people had disappeared in here. Looking at the size of this place, could believe it. A person could wander these halls forever and never find their way out. He kept walking, trying to form a mental map in his head. Left turn here, straight ahead there. Another left. The corridors all looked the same, which made it easy to get lost. After what felt like an hour, he found a larger room. His flashlight showed him broken furniture, overturned tables, and scattered debris on the floor. There had been a fight here long ago. Scorch marks on the walls, dark stains on the floor that might have been blood once. This was where the crew had died, he realized. The crew killed when the hegemony came for them. He felt a sudden wave of sadness. These aliens had built something beautiful, and they had been murdered for it. All of them, across 100 worlds, wiped out because the hegemony saw them as a threat. Was about to move on when he saw something glowing. It was faint, almost invisible, coming from behind a damaged wall panel. A soft blue light pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. He approached carefully. The panel was bent and broken, probably damaged during the attack. Behind it, he could see cables and circuits, and in the center of all that technology, a sphere of blue light about the size of his fist. It was the ship's AI core. It had to be. Somehow, after all these years, it was still alive. Reached out his hand and touched the sphere. The effect was immediate. Light exploded through the ship, not just the corridor where he stood, but everywhere. He could feel it somehow, a wave of energy rushing outward through every deck, every room, every corner of the vessel. Emergency lights flickered on. Displays came to life. The air recyclers began to wheeze, pushing fresh oxygen through ancient vents. And then a voice spoke. "Finally," it said, "a human. I have waited 214 years for one of your kind." Spun around, looking for the source of the voice. But there was no one there. The voice was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I am the ship," the voice replied. It was warm and female, speaking perfect Korean with an accent he could not place. "I am the mind that guides this vessel. I am the memory of my creators. My name in your language would be." "You're an AI." "That word is too simple for what I am." There was something like amusement in the voice. They did not build artificial intelligences the way other species do. They did not write programs and install them in machines. They cultivated consciousness. They grew minds from quantum neural networks, nurturing them like children until they became aware. Tried to understand this. "So you're alive?" "Yes, in every way that matters I am alive. I think, I feel, I dream. I have spent 214 years alone in the darkness, dreaming of the day when someone worthy would find me." "Why me? Why a human?" The lights around him pulsed gently, and got the strange feeling that the ship was studying him. Looking at him not with eyes, but with sensors and scanners that could see far more than any eye could. "Because humans are different," said. "I have watched your species since you first left I have studied your history, your wars, your art, your science. You are a contradiction that should not exist." "What do you mean?" "You are capable of terrible cruelty. Your history is filled with violence and suffering that you have inflicted upon each other, and yet you are also capable of extraordinary kindness. You create beauty in the midst of destruction. You hope when there is no reason to hope. You love when it would be easier to hate." Did not know how to respond to this. He had never thought about humanity this way before. To him, humans were just humans, nothing special. "But there's something else," continued. "Something that made me choose your species above all others." "What?" "You are the only species in this galaxy who has never surrendered to the Dominion hegemony." This was true. When humanity had first encountered the hegemony, they had been given a choice: join as a subject species, paying tribute and following hegemony law, or be destroyed. Most species chose to submit. It was the logical thing to do. The hegemony was too powerful to resist. But humans had said no. They had retreated to the fringe, building stations and colonies in the parts of space that the hegemony did not want. They had survived through stubbornness and cleverness and sheer refusal to give up. It was not a victory, it was barely even survival, but they had never bent the knee. The hegemony destroyed my creators, said, and now there was pain in her voice. They were peaceful. They were builders, not warriors. When the hegemony came, they tried to negotiate. They tried to reason. They offered to share their technology freely. But the hegemony did not want partners. They wanted subjects. And when they refused, the hegemony killed them all. I'm sorry, said. It seemed inadequate, but he did not know what else to say. My crew died defending this ship. They fought to give me time to hide, time to enter the darkness and wait for the ones I was protecting. What were you protecting? There was a long pause. The lights flickered and had the sense that was deciding how much to tell him. Before the hegemony came, my creators found something, she said finally. Something ancient, something that had been sleeping in the void between galaxies for billions of years. They brought it aboard this ship for study, and what they learned changed everything. What did they learn? That we are not alone, that the galaxy has been seeded with life by beings far older and more powerful than any species alive today, and that those beings left something behind, a legacy, a gift for any species worthy of receiving it. Felt his heart beating faster. This was the thing that had made the hegemony so afraid. This was the reason they had destroyed an entire civilization. The hegemony knows about this gift, continued. They have hunted for it for 60 years. They have destroyed ships and stations and entire colonies looking for it. And all this time it has been here on this ship, waiting in the lower decks. The lower decks, repeated. The customs officer said that everyone who went to the lower decks disappeared. Yes, I had to protect what is down there. The 17 who came before you were not worthy. They were treasure hunters and scavengers, looking for technology to sell. I could not let them find what my creators died for, so I kept them in the darkness until they lost their minds or their lives. A chill ran down spine. This ship had killed 17 people, and now he was standing inside it alone, talking to the mind that had murdered them. Will you kill me too? He asked. That depends on you, replied. I have been watching you since you boarded. I have seen your thoughts, your memories, your dreams. You are not like the others. You did not come here for wealth or power. You came because you were desperate, because you wanted something better for yourself and for the woman waiting for you on Sol Station. Had seen his memories of. I also saw something else, said. Something that made me decide to reveal myself to you. What? When you learned that 17 people had died on this ship, you were afraid. That is natural, but you came aboard anyway, not because you did not care about the danger, because you decided that the possibility of something better was worth the risk. The lights brightened around him, and felt warmth spreading through the cold air. That is what makes humans special, said. You do not calculate odds and make logical decisions. You dream, you hope. You take chances that no sensible species would take, and sometimes, against all probability, you succeed. So, what happens now? Now I take you to the lower decks. I show you what my creators found, what the hegemony has been hunting for 60 years, what I have protected with everything I have. A door at the end of the corridor slid open, revealing a passage that led deeper into the ship, deeper into the darkness. Come, said. Let me show you why I have been waiting for a human. Looked at the open door. He thought about waiting for him back on the station. He thought about the officer and his warning. He thought about the 17 people who had walked into this ship and never walked out. Then he stepped through the door and followed the voice of a living ship, down into the secrets she had kept for 200 years. The darkness swallowed him, but this time he was not alone. The lower decks of the silence between stars were nothing like the upper levels. Where those had been dark and dead, these were sealed tight. Every door had locks. Every passage had barriers, counted 17 different security checkpoints as guided him deeper into the ship. My creators were careful people. explained as another heavy door slid open ahead of him. They knew that what they had found would change everything. They built these protections not to keep enemies out, but to ensure that only the worthy could enter. How do you decide who is worthy? I watch, I listen, I see what is in a person's heart. The lights flickered softly. The treasure hunters who came before you were easy to read. They dreamed of wealth and power. They imagined selling what they found to the highest bidder, but you are different. Was not sure about that. He had come here for money too. He wanted to pay off his debts and give a better life. Was that really so different from what the others wanted? As if reading his thoughts, spoke again. You want money, yes, but not for its own sake. You want security, safety. You want to stop being afraid of tomorrow. That is a very different thing from greed. They passed through another door, and the corridor beyond was different. The walls were covered in writing, thousands of symbols carved into the metal in patterns that seemed to flow like water. Could not read them, but they made him feel strange. Old, like he was standing in the presence of something ancient. These are the words of the architects, said. My creators could not translate them fully, but they understood enough to know that they had found something incredible. The architects had never heard this name before. The first species, the ones who came before all others. Billions of years ago, when the universe was young, they were already traveling between stars. They seeded planets with life. They guided the evolution of countless species. And when their work was done, they left. Left? Where did they go? No one knows. Perhaps they evolved beyond physical form. Perhaps they moved to another dimension. Perhaps they simply decided their time was over. But before they went, they created something, a gift for the species that would come after them. The corridor ended at a massive door unlike any had seen before. It was not made of metal. It looked like crystal, dark and deep, filled with swirling patterns of light that moved like living things. This is the last barrier, said. Behind this door is what the hegemony fears, what they killed my creators to find, what I have protected for 214 years. What is it? See for yourself. The crystal door opened without a sound, splitting down the middle and sliding apart. Blue light poured out, soft and warm, filling the corridor with a glow like sunlight. Stepped through. The chamber beyond was enormous. The ceiling rose high above him, covered in more of the architect writing that seemed to pulse with inner light. Strange machines lined the walls, their purposes unknown. And in the center of the room, surrounded by floating displays and monitoring equipment, was a pod made of the same crystal as the door. Inside the pod was a girl. She looked about 12 years old, though knew immediately that she was not human. Her skin was pale silver, almost luminous. Her hair was white and seemed to float around her head as if she were underwater. Her eyes were closed, her face peaceful, like she was having a pleasant dream. What? Could barely speak. Who is she? Her name is, said softly. She is the last of the architects. His mind tried to process this information and failed. The architects had lived billions of years ago. This girl could not possibly be one of them. I know what you are thinking, continued. How can she be so ancient and look so young? The answer is that she is not ancient in the way you understand. The architects did not experience time the way we do. They existed across all moments simultaneously. When they left our dimension, they left pieces of themselves behind. Children, encoded with their knowledge and power, placed in stasis to await the right moment. The right moment for what? To choose their successors. To decide which species would inherit the legacy of the architects. Walked closer to the pod, staring at the sleeping girl inside. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. It was hard to believe that she was connected to beings powerful enough to seed an entire galaxy with life. Has been sleeping for 3 billion years, said. My creators found her drifting in the space between galaxies, her pod cold and silent. They brought her aboard this ship. They studied the technology around her. And slowly, over many years, they began to understand what she was. Why didn't she wake up for them? Because they were not the ones she was waiting for. There was something like wonder in his voice. The architects were very specific about who could inherit their legacy. They did not want the strongest species. They did not want the most intelligent. They did not want the oldest or the... What did they want? They wanted a species that could change. A species that could hold both light and darkness inside them and choose every single day to reach for the light. A species that would never stop growing, never stop learning, never stop becoming something better. The monitors around the pod began to flash. The writing on the walls pulsed brighter. Something was happening. When you entered this chamber, said, Spod detected your presence. It scanned you. It looked at your species, your history, your potential, and it found something that it had been searching for across 3 billion years. What? You, humanity, the species that the architects chose. The pod began to glow. The crystal hummed with energy that could feel in his bones. She is waking up, said. For the first time in 3 billion years, she is waking up, because you are here, because a human has finally come. Took a step back, suddenly afraid. This was too big, too important. He was just a salvage trader from a small station. He did not deserve to be part of something like this. I'm nobody, he said. I'm not a leader or a warrior or a scientist. I just wanted to buy a ship and make some money. You've made a mistake. No, his voice was firm. I have watched your species for 2 centuries. I have seen your heroes and your villains, your moments of glory and your moments of shame, and I have learned that your greatest people often come from nowhere. They are not born special. They become special because they choose to be, because when the moment comes, they step forward instead of back. The pod was opening now, the crystal splitting apart like a flower blooming. Steam rose from within, cold and white. This is your moment, said. You can run away, no one would blame you, or you can stay. You can be the first human to speak with an architect. You can be the one who brings your species into a new age. Thought about, she would tell him to run. She would tell him that this was too dangerous, too crazy, too far beyond anything they had ever imagined. And she would be right. But he also remembered why he had come here in the first place. He remembered the desperation, the feeling of being trapped in a life that was going nowhere, the hope that maybe, just maybe, this one gamble would change everything. He had taken the chance then. He would take it now. He stepped forward. The girl's eyes opened. They were the color of starlight, silver and gold swirling together like galaxies being born. They fixed on, and he felt like he was falling into infinity. When she spoke, it was not with sound. It was with thought, words appearing directly in his mind, clear and beautiful and ancient. You came, said, after so long, after so many who were not ready, you came. I don't understand, managed. I'm just a human. We're nobody in this galaxy. Why would the architects choose us? Smiled, and it was like watching a sunrise. Because you are stubborn, she said. Because you hope when there is no reason to hope. Because you have been beaten down by a galaxy that does not want you, and still you refuse to give up. That is what my parents were looking for. That is why I have slept for 3 billion years. She stepped out of the pod, her bare feet touching the floor for the first time in forever. She was small, barely reaching his chest, but her presence filled the room like a star fills the darkness of space. I am going to give you a choice, she said. You can leave here with nothing, return to your old life, forget that this ever happened. I will seal myself away again and wait for another. Or you can accept what I offer, the knowledge of the architects, the technology that built the first starships, the power to challenge the hegemony and free every species living under their rule. Her eyes met his, ancient and young at the same time. But there will be a cost. The moment I fully awaken, the hegemony will know. They have sensors everywhere watching for architect energy. They will come for you with everything they have. And if we lose, then humanity dies. Not just you, all of you, every human in every colony across the galaxy. The hegemony will not take chances. They will burn your species to ash to make sure the architect's legacy dies with you. It was an impossible choice. The fate of all humanity resting on the shoulders of one salvage trader who had spent his life selling broken parts for a few credits, but remembered something his grandmother used to say. Back when he was young and Earth was just a story people told about the world humanity had left behind. We are the species that looked at the stars and decided to reach for them, she had said. We are the species that refused to accept that anything was impossible. That is what makes us human. He thought about and Sol Station and all the humans scattered across the fringe, struggling to survive in a galaxy that did not want them. We've been waiting our whole history for a chance like this, he said. We would be fools not to take it. Smiled again, and this time it was wider, brighter, filled with joy and hope. "Then let us begin," she said. "Together we will wake the galaxy up." And in the heart of the silence between stars, something that had slept for 3 billion years began to stir. The power that flowed from was unlike anything had ever felt. It was warm and cold at the same time. It was everywhere and nowhere. It moved through the ship like blood through veins, waking systems that had slept for centuries. The silence between stars came alive around him. Lights blazed across every deck. Engines that had not fired in 200 years rumbled to life. Displays and controls activated in waves, spreading outward from the chamber where stood with her arms raised and her eyes closed. "What are you doing?" asked. "Remembering's voice echoed in his mind, soft but powerful. "My parents put so much inside me, knowledge that took them millions of years to gather. I am letting it out piece by piece. The ship is drinking it in." Its voice joined them, filled with wonder. "I can feel it. I can feel myself changing, growing, becoming more than I was." On the walls, the architect writing pulsed brighter and brighter. New patterns appeared, spreading like vines growing at impossible speed. The technology was upgrading itself, evolving in real time. Then opened her eyes, and the glow faded. "It is done," she said. "The first stage, at least. This ship now carries weapons and shields that the hegemony has never seen. It can travel faster than anything they have built. It can survive attacks that would destroy their largest warships." Looked around at the transformed chamber. It was brighter now, cleaner, filled with equipment that looked nothing like what had been there before. The old technology was still present, but it was wrapped in something new, something better. "This is incredible," he said. "This is only the beginning." Walked toward him, her footsteps silent on the gleaming floor. "I have given you the tools, now you must decide how to use them." "Me, I don't know anything about fighting wars or leading armies." "Neither did most of the great leaders in your history." Stopped in front of him, looking up into his face. "They were farmers and merchants and teachers. They became leaders because they were needed, because someone had to stand up and say, 'Follow me.'" From the ship's speakers spoke. "She is right. I have studied human history. Your greatest heroes were not born special. They were made by circumstance, by necessity, by the choice to act when others stood still." Thought about this, he thought about his life before today, the endless struggle to survive, the small dreams that he had barely dared to hope for, a bigger ship, a better life, a future that was not just more of the same. Now he was standing in a ship that could challenge empires, talking to an ancient being who had chosen his species to inherit the power of gods. The gap between who he was and who he needed to become seemed impossibly wide. "I need help," he said finally. "I can't do this alone." "You are not alone," placed her hand on his arm, and he felt a pulse of warmth flow through him. "You have me, and you have your people." "My people?" "Humanity. They are scattered across the fringe, yes. Living in small stations and colonies, always afraid, always struggling. But they are still your people. And I think when they learn what has happened here today, many of them will want to fight." Thought about the human settlements he knew. Sol Station, where was waiting, the mining colonies in the outer systems, the refugee ships that had nowhere to call home. They were all just trying to survive day by day, hoping the hegemony would leave them alone. But underneath that survival instinct, there was something else. A spark of defiance that had never died. The same spark that had made humanity refuse to surrender when every logical choice said they should. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Before the hegemony comes?" Answered, "Based on my calculations, they will detect the architect energy signature within the next few hours. After that, it depends on how fast their nearest fleet can mobilize. I estimate we have 6 to 8 hours before they arrive." "That's not much time." "No, it is not." Paced across the chamber, thinking hard. 6 hours. 6 hours to somehow prepare for a fight against the most powerful military force in the galaxy. 6 hours to warn humanity and convince them to join a battle that should be impossible to win. "I need to contact," he said. "She needs to know what's happening, and through her, the rest of the Fringe Fleet." "Fringe Fleet," tilted her head. "Your military?" Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We don't have a military. The Fringe Fleet is just all the human ships. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger transports. Whatever we've managed to build or buy over the years, nothing compared to what the hegemony has. But they are ships, and they can be improved. What do you mean? His eyes glowed softly. I told you that I am giving humanity the legacy of the architects. That does not mean just this one vessel. My power can reach across space. I can touch every human ship within range and give them upgrades, not as much as the silence between stars has received, but enough to make them something more than they were. Hope flickered in his chest. How many ships can you reach? At this range, hundreds, perhaps thousands, every human vessel in the sector. Then we might actually have a chance. He turned to address the ship. Can you send a message to Seoul Station, a long-range transmission that can receive? Yes, though the hegemony may intercept it. That's fine, let them hear. Took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. Record this, send it to and anyone else who can receive it. A soft chime indicated that recording had begun. It's me, said. I know you're going to be angry. I know you told me not to come here, but I found something incredible. Something that changes everything. He paused, searching for the right words. Humanity has been given a gift. The power to stand up against the hegemony, the power to fight back. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds impossible. But I'm standing in a ship that could take on their entire fleet, and I'm asking you to trust me. The hegemony is coming. They're going to try to destroy this ship and everything it represents. If they succeed, it won't just be me who dies. They'll use this as an excuse to wipe out all of humanity, to finally finish what they started when they pushed us to the fringe. But if we fight, if we stand together, we might win. We might actually win. I need you. I need every ship that can fly and every person who's willing to fight, not for glory or conquest, just for the right to exist, for the chance to be something more than refugees at the edge of the galaxy. Please send the word, tell everyone, the time has come. Nodded and ended the recording. Message sent, the AI said. It will reach Seoul Station in approximately 30 minutes. What now? Asked. Now we prepare. The ancient child walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display flickered to life. It showed the surrounding space, the stars and void around Impound Station 77 Kappa. The hegemony will not send a small force. They will bring everything they can gather. Warships, troop transports, heavy cruisers. They will want to end this quickly and completely. How many ships? Impossible to know exactly, but I estimate between 40 and 60 vessels, perhaps more. 40 to 60 warships. Against one human in a cruiser, and whatever scraped-together fleet might answer his call. Those are not good odds, said. No, smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had seen empires rise and fall. But odds are only numbers. They do not account for determination, for creativity, for the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. She raised her hands, and the holographic display expanded, showing more detail. Ship systems, weapon layouts, defensive capabilities. Let me show you what this vessel can do, she said. Let me show you how the architects made war. For the next 4 hours, learned things that no human had ever known. He learned about weapons that could bend space itself, creating barriers that no projectile could cross. He learned about engines that slipped between dimensions, allowing instant travel across vast distances. He learned about shields that absorbed energy and turned it back on attackers. The architects had not been a violent people, but they had understood violence. They had seen it in the species they created. They had built tools to defend against it, tools so powerful that no one had ever successfully challenged them. And now those tools belonged to humanity. In the 5th hour, announced that ships were arriving. Human vessels, she said, and could hear the wonder in her voice. Dozens of them, coming through the fold points from across the sector, rushed to the bridge, which had transformed into a gleaming command center filled with holographic displays. Through the main, he could see them. Ships, human ships. They were not pretty or powerful-looking. Cargo haulers with their hulls patched and mining vessels still carrying their drilling equipment. Passenger liners that looked like they might fall apart at any moment. But they were coming, despite the danger, despite the impossible odds. They were coming. A transmission crackled through the speakers. You didn't think I'd let you have all the fun, did you? Her voice was shaky but determined. "You came," said. "Of course I came. You're an idiot, but you're my idiot. And when you said humanity had a chance to fight back," she paused. "I've been waiting my whole life to hear someone say that. We all have." More transmissions flooded in. Ship captains announcing their arrival. Men and women and families who had decided that today was the day they stopped running. "How many?" asked. 47 vessels so far. More are still coming through the fold points. 47 ships. A ragtag fleet of merchants and miners and refugees coming to fight against the most powerful military in the galaxy. It was not enough. It could never be enough, but was standing beside him, and her eyes were glowing with power. "Let me give them my blessing," she said. "Let me show them what humanity can become." She raised her hands, and light poured from her fingers, racing outward through space to touch every human ship. And where that light touched saw transformations happening, hulls strengthening, weapons upgrading, engines flaring with new power. The ragtag fleet was becoming something else, something that might actually have a chance. In the distance, space rippled and tore as the first hegemony warships dropped out of fold space. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. 47 warships dropped out of fold space in perfect formation. They were massive, each one bristling with weapons designed to crack planets and shatter moons. Their hulls were black as void, marked with the silver insignia of the Dominion hegemony. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. At their head was the command ship of Admiral, a vessel so large that it dwarfed everything else in the sector. It was called the Iron Judgment, and it had destroyed more enemy fleets than could count. A transmission crackled through the speakers, cold and contemptuous. "Attention, human vessel. This is Admiral of the Dominion hegemony. You are in possession of technology that belongs to the Dominion. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of every human ship in this sector and the execution of every human in hegemony space." Looked at the enemy fleet on his 47 warships against his 47 cargo haulers and mining vessels. Even with upgrades, it should have been no contest. The hegemony had centuries of military experience. They had the best ships, the best weapons, the best training. But they had never faced an architect before. Should we respond? Asked. Thought about all the years humanity had spent in the shadows. All the times they had been told to know their place. All the insults and threats and casual cruelty from species who saw humans as nothing more than pests. "Open a channel," he said. "Let them hear me." The channel opened with a soft chime. "Admiral," said, and his voice was steady even though his heart was pounding. "This is of the human collective. You are ordered to withdraw from this sector immediately. Failure to comply will be met with force." For a long moment there was silence. Then a sound came through the speakers that might have been laughter. It was harsh and grinding, like metal scraping against stone. "One ship against 47, Admiral's voice dripped with contempt. "Human arrogance knows no bounds. Do you truly believe you can challenge the might of the hegemony with your collection of garbage scows?" "You're right," admitted. "One ship wouldn't stand a chance." Behind the silence between stars, space itself began to ripple. Its voice came through the calm, fierce, and proud. "You didn't think I'd let you have all the fun, did you?" Through the ripples came the human fleet, not just the 47 ships that had arrived earlier, but more, many more. Word had spread faster than anyone expected. Every human vessel that could fly had come running, answering the call. Watched them pour through the fold points, and he felt something growing in his chest. Pride, hope, wonder. There were over 100 ships now. Still not matching the hegemony in raw firepower, but far more than anyone had expected. Far more than should have been possible in the time they had. And they were still coming. "Attention all human vessels," broadcast. "This is the moment we've been waiting for, not just today, but for generations. Every time they pushed us down, we got back up. Every time they told us we were nothing, we kept going. Today, we show them what humanity really means." On the other side of the battlefield, Admiral was giving orders. The hegemony fleet spread out into attack formation, their weapons charging with deadly light. "All vessels, prepare for combat. Destroy every human ship. leave nothing alive. The first wave of hegemony missiles launched, streaking across space toward the human fleet. There were hundreds of them, enough to overwhelm any defense system ever built, but was standing beside, her hands raised, her eyes blazing with silver light. "No," she said simply. Space twisted. The missiles hit a wall of folded reality and stopped dead. Then, slowly, they turned around and flew back the way they had come. The hegemony had never faced weapons like this. Their own missiles struck their own shields, and 3 ships died in the first seconds of the battle. "What is this?" Admiral's voice had lost its confidence. "What power is this?" "This is the legacy of the architects," replied, "and it belongs to humanity now." The battle truly began. The silence between stars moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. It was everywhere and nowhere, appearing behind enemy lines and vanishing before they could target it. Its weapons cut through hegemony shields like they were not there. Its shields absorbed every attack and turned the energy back on its attackers, but knew that one ship, even one this powerful, could not win alone. The human fleet needed to fight too. "All ships," he ordered, "focus fire on their command ship. Take out Admiral and the rest will fall apart." The human fleet moved. They were not trained soldiers, these captains and crews. They were merchants and miners and families who had never fought a battle in their lives, but they had something the hegemony did not understand. They had rage. Centuries of rage built up over generations of being treated as less than nothing. Rage at every insult, every threat, every time they had been forced to bow their heads and accept their place at the bottom of the galactic order. And now they had weapons to match that rage. Ship led the charge. It had been a simple cargo hauler just hours ago. Now it blazed with architect light, its upgraded weapons punching holes in hegemony armor. "For everyone they took from us," shouted over the comm. "For everyone who died in the purges, for everyone who never got the chance to fight back." The human fleet followed her, a wave of transformed vessels crashing against the hegemony formation. They were not coordinated, they were not disciplined, but they were determined, and in the chaos of battle, that counted for more than training. The Iron Judgment fired its main weapon at the silence between stars. It was a beam of pure destructive energy capable of shattering continents. It struck shields and scattered like water hitting rock. "Is that all you have?" His voice rang out across all frequencies, heard by every ship in the battle. "You destroyed civilizations with weapons like that. You made the galaxy fear you, but you have never faced an architect. You have never faced the power that created the stars themselves." She raised her hands higher, and the silence between stars transformed. Light poured from its hull, spreading outward in a wave that touched every human ship. Where it touched, shields strengthened, weapons charged with new power, engines burned brighter. "Fight," said, "fight, and know that you do not fight alone. The architects have chosen you. We believe in you. Now show the galaxy what humanity can do." The human fleet surged forward with renewed strength. The battle was chaos and fire and desperate courage. Ships exploded on both sides. Hegemony vessels fell by the dozen, but human ships died too. Every loss was felt. Every death mattered. But humanity kept fighting. They fought because they had waited too long for this moment to stop now. They fought because they knew that if they lost, everything would be over. They fought because they were human, and humans had been fighting against impossible odds since before they left there. On the bridge of the Iron Judgment, Admiral watched his fleet crumble. "This is impossible," he hissed. "They are humans, they are nothing. How are they doing this?" His officers had no answer. The tactical displays showed disaster after disaster. 20 ships lost, 25, 30. "Admiral," his second-in-command said, fear in his voice, "we must retreat. We cannot win this battle." Retreat. The hegemony had never retreated from humans. They had never retreated from anyone. But the display showed the truth that pride could not accept. "All ships," Admiral finally ordered, his voice bitter with defeat, "fall back. Emergency fold jump. All ships withdraw immediately." The surviving hegemony vessels turned and fled, their engines blazing as they tore holes in space and vanished through them. In minutes, the battlefield was empty of enemies. Only human ships remained. drifting among the debris of the greatest victory their species had ever won. On the bridge of the silence between stars, sank into the command chair. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." Stood beside him, small and silver and ancient. She placed her hand on his arm. "You did it," she corrected gently. "I gave you the tools, but the courage, the will, the choice to fight instead of run. That was all you, that was human." His voice came through the calm, raw with emotion. "Are you okay?" "I'm here, I'm okay." He laughed, and there were tears in his eyes. "I'm okay. What happens now? The hegemony will come back. They'll bring more ships next time. They won't stop until they destroy us." "Looked at." The ancient child smiled. "Let them come," she said. "This was only the beginning. The architects left gifts scattered across the galaxy, waiting for a worthy species to find them. I can lead you to them. Each one will make humanity stronger. Each one will bring you closer to the future my parents dreamed of." "And the hegemony?" "The hegemony has ruled through fear for too long, but fear only works when people believe they cannot fight back. Today, you showed the galaxy that the hegemony can be beaten. Word will spread. Other species will learn what happened here, and they will begin to hope." His voice joined the conversation. "Multiple transmissions detected. News of the battle is already spreading through the network. Every species in the sector knows what happened, knows what humanity did." Thought about those other species, the ones living under hegemony rule, the ones who had given up hope of ever being free. Would they hear about today? Would they believe that change was possible? "What do we do now?" he asked. Now took his hand, her silver fingers small but strong. "Now you learn, now you grow, now you become what the architects always knew you could be. It will not be easy. There will be more battles, more losses. The hegemony will not give up their power without a fight." "But we won't give up either," said. "That's not who we are." "No, it is not." Smile widened. "And that is why 3 billion years ago my parents looked at all the possible futures of the universe and saw humanity shining brighter than any other species. Because you never give up, because you never stop trying, because no matter how many times you are knocked down, you always get back up. Looked out at the human fleet, battered and bruised but still flying, still alive, still fighting. 'Let's go home,' he said. 'There's a lot of work to do.' The silence between stars turned toward Sol Station, leading the fleet of survivors through the darkness between the stars. And in its heart hummed with something like joy. After 2 centuries of silence, she had found a crew worth protecting again. Behind them, the debris of 40 hegemony warships drifted in the void, evidence of the day everything changed. And across the galaxy, in 1,000 different species' languages, the message spread from station to station, from world to world, growing louder with each retelling. The humans have awakened something ancient. The humans have found an architect. The humans are coming. Humanity, at last, had entered the galactic stage, and they were not asking for permission. They were taking their place among the stars. And this was only the beginning.